The Tears of God. A novel by Dr. A. Ahmed. This book continues the story of the Arab sugar daddy and the beautiful Indian girl, and the story of the Indian child bride and the old Arab husband, and the story of the Indian Miss World and the rage of Muslims of the world, and also the story of Christina and the complete Jew. They have been written in English and translated into Arabic by the author Dr. Ahmed. This tale resonates with genuine love, strong resilience, and steadfast courage. I invite you to accompany me as I narrate the adventures of the extremely beautiful Indian girl, Aphrodite Khan, and her handsome American lover, Michael Lewinsky, in the Muslim world. Before we dive in the tapestry of the story, I would like to remind the reader this novel is narrated in 6 books. Book 1, The Arab Sugar Daddy and the Beautiful Indian Girl. Book 2, The Indian Child Bride and the Old Arab Husband. Book 3, The Indian Miss World and the Rage of Muslims of the World. Book 4, Christina and the Complete Jew. Book 5, The Tears of God, Jews, Blacks, and Muslim Women. And Book 6, The Hidden Life of the Prophet Muhammad. This is an intriguing epic story which exhibits resilience, love, and sacrifice. Book 5. Researching the social life of the Muslim woman in the Islamic world. Copyrights. All rights are reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the prior written permission of the author, except by a reviewer, who may quote brief passages from a review for printing in a public newspaper, general magazine, school journal, or university article. All characters in this novel are fictional, and any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, is merely coincidental. Chapter 34. The Righteous Police of Allah. The Sudanese police officer, Babakar Hussein Osama, has always had gross hatred for Indians and Americans. He hates Indians with gross hatred and abhors Americans with recklessness and bitterness. He often says to his friends and colleagues that if he lays his hands on those scums of the earth, the Indians and Americans, he will flay their skins and burn them with fire. He strongly believes his hatred has strong grounds and is entirely justified. While he was studying at the University of Mumbai, he was falsely accused of being a drug dealer and condemned to a long sentence of 11 years under hard labor in the rotten prisons of India. He could have been sentenced to a full term of 30 years behind bars without a chance of parole, but his clean criminal record saved him from getting the maximum punishment. He was innocent of the malicious charge, but during his 3-year trial, he had no money to appoint a lawyer to defend his case. The Mumbai Criminal Court appointed a Hindu advocate to protect him in court. His Hindu lawyer turned out to be his enemy rather than his savior. That Hindu lawyer used to say openly to his friends and colleagues that he hates all Muslims, including their allies, dogs and cats. So, if he could, the Hindu advocate would have convinced the judge and his jury to send his Muslim client Babakar Hussein Osama to the gallows. He might gladly have done that. An Indian citizen, who bore Babakar ill will, nailed him up with that malicious accusation. And that evil person happened to be his Muslim employer, Mr. Muhammad Khan. While he was serving his long jail term inside the most treacherous prison in the world, Babakar came to know who trumped up the false charges. It was his former boss, the devil incarnate Mr. Muhammad Khan, who hid the drugs in his bag while Babakar was busy with his final exam. He learned this after he completed 5 years in prison. The informant was a Gonda, or an Indian bandit man, who happened to have a mutual acquaintance at the time when Babakar lived in an apartment in the Vakola colony area. Circumstances reunited the two friends in jail. There was nothing Babakar could do to change his plight, so he served out his remaining 6 years in the rotten jails of Mumbai and Pune cities. Many times, in jail, he got mercilessly hammered by the Indian gangsters who hate foreign prisoners due to jealousy, because they know those foreign detainees from rich countries while they are from the poorest country in the world. Babakar Hussein Osama could not finish his studies and therefore failed to obtain his degree from the prestigious University of Mumbai. As soon as he had served his long prison term, he was deported to his country of origin, and his name was blacklisted at every Indian airport and other port of entry. He returned to his country after an absence of 14 years. He came home empty-handed and a miserable failure in life, no different from a soldier returning from a war in a foreign country, defeated and humiliated. He could not marry the apple of his eye, his beloved Indian girlfriend, Jamila Malik. It was undoubtedly a one-sided love, but at the last moment, Jamila agreed to marry him, albeit with a condition attached. Though her name means the beautiful young woman, she was the ugliest Indian girl ever created by God. Despite that, as an Indian girl, she did not want to marry a black Negro boy like Babakar. In addition, her African boyfriend was a one-eyed man, which made her abhor him even more. At first, the ugly girl Jamila said to her other girlfriends, she would rather prefer to wed the devil than marry a black Negro like Babakar al-Awwar. She pretended to like him because she wanted him to buy her meals and give her costly gifts. On his back, she called him in Hindi the Bout Man, which means a scary black ghost. But because her black Sudanese boyfriend, who loved her, but she did not love him, had received a promise of a highly paid job in a rich Arab petrodollar country, she agreed to marry him. Her condition was that her black Negro boyfriend Babakar should first travel to Saudi Arabia and make a lot of money, then, and only then she could marry him. However, his unexpected incarceration shattered that beautiful dream into pieces. While Babakar was stinking and rotting inside the filthy Indian jails, Jamila Malik found a suitor and got married to him. By the time he was a free man, she had borne her Indian husband 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls. After Babakar, Hussein Osama returns to his hometown in a small city in the western region of Sudan called En-Nahid. He is treated as an outcast and a former criminal. No one is prepared to believe his story, that he was jailed falsely for 11 years in India. No one among his own relatives and old friends believed the conspiracy theory of his innocence. His story is hard to believe because he used to live and study in India without any financial support. Some of his Sudanese acquaintances turned out to be his enemies and spread nasty rumors that Babakar's financial abilities and his mad love and crazy desire to marry his Indian girlfriend were fueled by drug cartel overlords from the Mumbai underworld mafia. The rumor was reinforced because 2 other Sudanese men called Abbas and Muhammad from Babakar's town were also involved in drug trafficking between the cosmopolitan city of Mumbai and a beautiful Indian tourist coastal city called Goa, and landed in jail at the same time he was arrested. So the rumors grew to include Babakar as a partner in drug crimes to Abbas and Muhammad. Shortly after he arrived in Sudan, Babakar Hussein Osama changed 180 degrees and joined an international Muslim terrorist group called the Muslim Brotherhood. He expediently thought the only thing that could shield him from the nasty reputation that he acquired from India was religion. Babakar believed that by becoming a religious man, he could regain the respect of his family members, relatives, and old friends. His affiliation with that notorious Muslim Brotherhood group helped him to get a job in the police force. His terrorist group instilled immense hatred towards Westerners and specifically the Americans. He was made to believe that America and its allies are the cause of all the terrorist crimes and problems in the Muslim world. He is also conditioned to believe that America had created the Al-Qaeda and the ISIS terrorist groups to get an excuse to invade the Arab countries, leading to permanent control of the Middle East and thus its oil. Babakar was made to believe from childhood that the UK, France, Russia, and the USA had created the State of Israel on Arab soil, causing never-ending conflict between the Arabs and the Jews. Babakar's hatred toward the Jews will be impossible to put into words. As a Muslim, he inherited anti-Semitism through the blood of his father and sucked it from the breasts of his mother. His gross hatred toward the Jews is his father's blood that keeps running in his veins, and his mother's milk that shaped his flesh and bones. Suffice it to say, as a Muslim, Babakar considered the Jews as a cursed people, subhuman, satanic race, descendants of apes and pigs, friends of the devil, and the worshippers of the ancient serpent who is called in the Bible Lucifer, Satan, and the dragon. Since Babakar's three bitter enemies, Jews, Americans, and Indians, are out of his reach, he spewed his venom on his fellow citizens. Everyone who met him or heard about him hated him. His name evoked more fear than that of the devil. Women used his dreadful name to frighten their children when they became stubborn and naughty. A mother will tell her small child, if you do not become good, I will call for you the dangerous police officer Babakar. Some of the kids urinated in their clothes when they heard that dreadful name of the devil incarnate Babakar al-Awwar. Many superstitious girls in the town of En-Nihad city believe, if they see the dangerous police officer Babakar al-Awwar, he can make them pregnant with illegitimate babies before he touches their private parts. Of course, he raped many girls when they fell into his hands. He fathered uncountable numbers of kids through rapes. He never used condoms while raping his victims, or knows what the condom looks like. If any suspect falls in the hands of the police officer Babakar Hussein Osama, he tortures him to death. If the suspect happens to be a woman, he rapes her no matter whether she is a 6-year-old child or an old woman of 60. Before he was sent to his hometown En-Nihad city, Babakar was trained at the police academy in Khartoum city. Every evil that a wicked person can do to his fellow human, Babakar mastered at that notorious police academy. The Muslim Brotherhood government was the first Sudanese regime to introduce and create the But al-Ashba, or the devil's or ghosts' houses. Anyone entering a ghost house meets two fates. He is either tortured to death or becomes a crazy man or madwoman. If he manages to survive the brutal police interrogation, he will be locked up indefinitely without trial or right of visitation by his family. He will be cast into a deep dark dungeon, and he will never see the sunlight again. His dungeon will be his toilet and his grave. A Sudanese girl will prefer a life of prostitution or death by starvation on the streets, rather than a stint at the ghost house. If a virgin girl somehow manages to survive the torture and rape inside those stinking slaughter chambers, she will come out with a baby. A daughter of a well-known family entered those death concentration camps as a virgin and came out with 2 illegitimate babies. She did not know who the fathers of her 2 babies were because she got raped by more than a dozen of police officers and male guards when she was in one of the ghost houses. The leader of that notorious terrorist group of the Muslim Brotherhood, the former Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir, was indicted by the International Criminal Court at Hague for crimes against humanity, war crimes, and genocide. An arrest warrant for President Omar al-Bashir was issued on March 4, 2009, by the ICC, indicting him on 5 crimes against humanity: murder, extermination, forcible transfer, torture, and rape, and 2 crimes of war crimes, pillaging and intentionally directing attacks against civilians. A second arrest warrant for President al-Bashir was later issued on July 12, 2010, by the ICC, adding 3 counts of genocide for the ethnic cleansing of the Fur, Masalit, and Zaghawa tribes of the Darfur region of western Sudan. Despite all those evils, the police officer of Allah, Babakar Hussein Osama, and his Muslim brothers and sisters claim to be the most righteous people on earth, and strive hard to implement the dreadful and draconian Sharia law of the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad in every city and every country of the world. After the Muslim Brotherhood seized power through a military coup d'état, Sudan officially became a Muslim and Arab country with Sharia law enforced on every town and every village within the Islamic Republic of North Sudan. At long last, the so-called righteous policeman of Allah, Babakar Hussein Osama, was able to lay his hands on 2 of his bitterest enemies. An American man and his Indian wife have been accused of being undercover spies and arrested by him. It is a widespread practice in Sudan to accuse the employees and workers of the non-government organizations, NGOs, of being spies or agents for the West. Some voluntary agencies such as CARE, Cooperative for Assistance and Relief Everywhere, and the United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund were there in Sudan to help the displaced refugees and their children in Darfur province. The Islamic government of North Sudan customarily accused them of being secret Christian missionaries who used food and money to brainwash the minds of poor Muslims and convert them to Christianity. Another common false charge is spying for the West, America in particular. Without the burden of proof, the accused agency would be kicked out of the country, with some of its locally employed workers subject to severe punishment. Ordinary Western visitors to Sudan had been falsely accused with similar charges, punished, tortured, detained without trial, and deported. Stories of foreign men being killed in custody and foreign young women being raped are not rare. At first, the two American suspects were accused of interfering in a disputed inherited property between local citizens of En Nahid town. An old woman by the name of Sakina Abdul Nabi complained to her deceased husband's brother and sister. In her lawsuit, she accused the Sharia court of stealing her money and giving it to her in-laws. Through her complaint, Sakina went against the righteous Sharia law of the exalted Allah and his infallible prophet Muhammad and tried to show that the secular man-made law, which had been invented by the West, has more justice and fairness than the divinely revealed Sharia law. Such an accusation is not only a serious blasphemy but caused Sakina to exit out of the Muslim Ummah, the Islamic community, and became kafira and murtada, an unclean female infidel and filthy apostate. Due to her state of unbelief, Sakina appointed a secular lawyer and decided to fight the decision of the Sharia court in a civil court. However, the police investigations revealed that she is an extremely poor widow, and hence she is not in a good financial position to cover the expenses of a lawyer's fees to fight such a serious and big lawsuit case against the Sharia court from one end, and also the lawyer of the wealthy man who is her brother-in-law on the other end. The police authority of En Nahid town discovered that a foreign couple, who are renting 3 huts in Sakina's house, are the instigators of such an un-Islamic complaint. The American couple had encouraged Sakina to contest the decision of the Sharia court at the civil court, appointed a lawyer for her, paid his fees, and promised to cover any supplementary legal expenses. The daring action of the old woman, in the police officer, Babakar Hussein Osama's mind, is so blasphemous as if a Muslim woman has sued her exalted Allah at a satanic court, and wants the devil to prosecute her God. In accordance, Sakina Abdul Nabi was arrested under serious charges of blasphemy and apostasy and kept in chains until the day she was condemned and brought to the executioner so that her head could be lopped off. The police officer, Babakar Hussein Osama, went further and began to cast serious doubts on the religious affiliation of the foreign couple. The couple claimed to be American Muslims who are running a small private and profitable charity home for the poor local Muslims. Through the police inquiries, there is not even a single local citizen found who received financial help or food from those two foreigners. More serious than that, the imam of the local mosque, which is located 1 block away from their rented huts, and his devotees had never seen the American man visiting their mosque even once. How a man could claim to be a Muslim when he had not come to the mosque for one single prayer in 8 months? The Prophet Muhammad said, "If you see a man repeatedly visiting the mosque, then bear witness to his faith." In addition, when the 2 Eritrean female refugees who are employed as a cook and an interpreter by the foreign couple were interrogated by the police, they said that they had never seen their employers praying even a single prayer during all the time of their employment. Those 2 Eritrean girls are both Muslims and remained under their employ for 8 months. To top it all, their cook, Zahara Sulla, who always cooked their food, swore under oath by placing her right hand on her Holy Quran that whenever she served food to her American employers, they closed their eyes, bowed their heads, and blessed their food, not much different from the Christians she saw were doing in Eritrea. Their Arabic-English interpreter Mona Yassin said she heard them every morning and evening singing hymns and praising the Prophet Isa ibn Maryam, whom they called their Lord and God Jesus Christ. Those 2 Eritrean girls claimed their American employers had tried many times to convert them to their distorted religion of Christianity. They even promised to help them if they converted from Islam to Christianity to immigrate to their country America as resettled persecuted refugees. The last piece of evidence that sealed the fate of the American couple and put the last nails in their coffins is their laptop. After searching the files on their laptop, the police found detailed descriptions with nasty critical evaluations of obligatory Islamic practices. The nasty critique directed attacks against the honorable Muslim women's coverings of hijabs and niqabs, the right of the men to polygamy, the right of the underage girl to get married, wife discipline, women's female circumcision, the obedience verdict against disobedient and rebellious Muslim wife, and the Sharia law of inheritance. The American couple even called the noble martyrdom of the soldier of Al-Rahman, the son of the old woman Sakina Abdul Nabi in jihad against the Christian infidels in South Sudan, a foolish death. The martyr Khalid Wad Mahmoud is considered by them to have been brainwashed and deceived by the false promise of the 72 virgins in paradise which are mentioned in the Holy Quran, and the blessed Sunnah of the infallible Prophet, Muhammad ibn Abdullah. Consequently, the righteous police officer of Allah, Babakar Hussein Osama, concluded that the writer of those blasphemous remarks could not be a Muslim man at all. A Muslim would cease to be a Muslim if he rejected the Sharia law of Allah and His Messenger, and preferred to follow a man-made law that had been invented by the accursed Westerners in their open disbelief in God and even lack of belief in their distorted and corrupted religion of Christianity. Finally, the inclusion of names, dates, and places, and the general accuracy of observations, made the entries look exactly like what a spy and enemy of Islam could write down. After finding tangible evidence in their laptop, Babakar Hussein Osama is fully convinced that the American man Samir Ahmed and his Indian wife Samira Ahmed are Muslim pretenders. Those two foreign liars came to spy on Muslim women with the intention of eventual malicious exposure in their country to defame Islamic society and destroy the beautiful religion of Islam. They also want to spoil the beautiful and aromatic Sunnah and Sirah of the infallible Prophet Muhammad, who is the master of creation and sent by God as a mercy to mankind. Therefore, the dreadful police officer Babakar drafted a full report including the photos of the two American conspirators and lengthy quotations from their nasty critical evaluations of the practices of women in En-Nahid town. He emailed his report to the highest police authority in Khartoum. He decided to keep the matter hidden from the local newspapers and radio. He does not want the case of the two American detainees to reach the ears of the foreign employees of the Human Rights Watch, which has its headquarters in South Sudan, or any other foreign organization or embassy in the capital city, before the police authority at Khartoum has laid hands on the two evil spies and conspirators. After drafting his report and emailing it to the highest police authority at Khartoum, the righteous policeman of Allah, Babakar Hussein Osama, decided to exact the holy revenge of his flesh nearest to the heart on the Indian slut woman Samira and her evil American man Samir. It is a golden opportunity, he thus believes, that his Allah has delivered two of his sworn enemies in his hands, and it is time to exact justice regarding all the evils that had been unjustly done to him in India, and against the never-ending evils that America and its allies are doing in the Muslim world. Chapter 35. Abuse of foreign girls in a Muslim police station. The policeman is the most dangerous person to the public in the Third World. And the most vulnerable person in the Muslim society is a lone woman. The woman cannot step out of her house alone and not fall prey to the cops. In the Muslim world, every young woman walking in the streets without her father, brother, or husband would be considered a prostitute. Men tease her verbally, harass her sexually, and follow her like hungry wolves chasing a stray goat or dogs following a female dog in heat. If she dares to talk to them or tries to stop them from following her, that action gives them more assurance that she is indeed a bad girl, since a good girl is not supposed to speak to men in public. If she keeps silent and continues to walk, they may just keep teasing her and following her until she reaches her house. But if she falls into the hands of the policeman, then it is certain that harm and rape are high possibilities. In Sudan, the most vulnerable groups are the Eritrean female refugees and Ethiopian girls. Most Sudanese men believe that every young Ethiopian woman is a prostitute. Therefore, the brothel houses in every city in Sudan are called the Ethiopian women's houses. Eritrean girls often get raped inside their refugee camps by the very Sudanese soldiers who are assigned to protect them, and by the Sudanese employees and workers who are supposed to serve them. If a refugee girl dares to step out of her camp, she will effectively deliver herself to the Sudanese policeman, and she will get gang raped. A Sudanese policeman is likely to boast among his colleagues and friends about the number of Eritrean girls he had sex with or raped. Refugee girls preferred to escape their miserable lives in the camps and move to the cities, earning their keep by becoming prostitutes or working as maidservants in Sudanese homes. Refugee girls who are working as maidservants in local houses are easy targets for all kinds of sexual harassment by the male members of those homes. A few days after Salwa was kidnapped, the old woman Sakina Abdul Nabi's house was raided again by the policeman. This time, she is not arrested alone, but every living creature in her house is taken into custody. Even her dog, which dared to bark at the police officers of the law enforcement, got hit with big batons, wounded, rendered unconscious, taken in custody, and then shot and killed as a dangerous stray dog. The 4 foreigners, Samir, Samira, Mona, and Zahara, have been all tied up with long ropes and loaded in a police officer wagon and carried as detainees. The 2 Eritrean girls are arrested under the charges of running away from their refugee camp and living within city limits without legal police permits. The American couple Samir and Samira are detained under serious charges, and they have not been told of their offenses until they reach the police lockup. When the 4 foreign suspects have been brought to the police custody, they have been kept in 2 separate lockup huts. The 3 girls have been kept in one hut while Samir has been dumped in a dark hut with the other 2 local detainees. None of the 4 foreigners knew where the old woman had been imprisoned. Being a local detainee, Sakina has been taken to a huge hut that is crowded with local women such as female illegal liquor makers and sellers, badly battered wives, illegally pregnant unmarried girls, prostitutes, female murderers, and girls who got arrested while they were sitting or walking with their boyfriends who are not related to them. Some witches are accused of practicing black magic. As soon as they are placed in a hut, the 3 foreign girls Samira, Mona, and Zahara are harshly interrogated by the police officer, Babakar Hussein Osama. The 2 Eritrean girls have admitted that they had run away from their refugee camp without official papers. But the Indian wife has denied all the allegations that have been made against her and her American husband. Likewise, when he is questioned, Samir denies all the accusations but admits that he had collected the data about the abuse of women because he is majoring in religious studies and needs them for writing his master's thesis. Moreover, both Samir and Samira refuse to admit that they are not Muslims, and also vehemently denied they are pretenders. Nevertheless, the righteous policeman of Allah, the police officer Babakar, refused to accept their statements and held them up under the serious charges of being not true Muslims but Christian pretenders and undercover who came to spy on the Muslim society to defame Islam and cast doubts on the divinely revealed message of the infallible prophet of God Muhammad. Samira, being still a naive girl, does not take the accusations seriously, but Samir is very frightened by them. He expected that if their case reached higher authority in Khartoum, then the hidden identity of his Indian wife would be revealed. She may be recognized as the former Miss World who called the Prophet Muhammad, "my foot or shoe," and threatened to spit on the Holy Quran of Muslims when she got crowned as the beauty queen. If her hidden past is exposed, then she will be in a more intolerable situation than if the American FBI suddenly discovered that the terrorist leader of ISIS is holding up or hiding in a small town in the United States of America. Not surprisingly, Samir remained awake at night thinking about how to stop his beloved Indian wife and himself from reaching the capital city with those serious charges and evidence and eventually ending up on the gallows. Despite the situation, Samira remained calm in her lockup hut with the other 2 Eritrean girls. When the night fell, she left Mona and Zahara talking in their mother tongue, the Tigrinya language, and she simply fell asleep, as if she were still with her husband in her hut at Sakina's house. Her peaceful sleep had been interrupted, and she woke up in terror at midnight when a couple of Sudanese policemen walked inside their hut. The 2 policemen did not speak a word either to each other or to the 3 foreign female detainees. Samira became exceedingly frightened when she opened her eyes and found the two cops standing in the middle of the hut just like two black ghosts. She could not believe her eyes when she saw one of the policemen sitting near one of the two Eritrean girls and began to touch her body. He began to caress her breasts and then kissed her on her lips. Samira's astonishment peaked when she saw the other cop seated himself beside the other Eritrean girl and began to hug and kiss her too. Before she could overcome the shock, the cops started undressing the girls as if they're husbands. What troubled Samira was that neither girl appeared to refuse or resist their sexual advances. She became angrier with the two Eritrean girls than with the two Sudanese policemen. Samira shouted at the girls in English and told them to stop responding to the policemen before they raped them. Her interpreter Mona simply told her that they are girls and strangers in Sudan, and can do nothing to prevent or forestall what is going to happen to them. She also told her that agreeing to sex is the only way to get their freedom back. Samira rebuked her more harshly for her silly excuse of allowing such nonsense to be done to her. Before she can finish berating her interpreter Mona, Samira notices that the other Eritrean girl Zahara is stark naked, on her back, with the other policeman buck naked on top of her. Samira ignored Mona and began to rebuke Zahara and asked her to do something to stop that wicked men from raping her. The female cook remained deaf and dumb, continuing her sex as if no one were talking to her or nothing was happening to her body. By then Mona and her sex partner have also reached the same shameful climax. The two Eritrean girls are enjoying sex rather than feeling the pain of rape and humiliation. Meanwhile, their two rapists are engaging them in a talk in the Arabic language. The two Eritrean girls are behaving as if they are girlfriends making love with their boyfriends, or two men having paid sex with two prostitutes in a brothel house. When she failed to convince the two refugee girls, Samira began to shout at the two Sudanese policemen, but none of them understood a word of what she was saying or bothered to look at her. They fully indulged themselves with the two complacent girls who were enjoying what they were doing with them. Samira was aghast, locked in fear, minding herself to neither turn away nor close her eyes, lest she be caught unguarded and jumped upon by one of those wicked policemen. She ignored the two uncaring girls and began to worry about herself. She fully expected that as soon as those two evil policemen finished with their easy sex praise, they will come after her and rape her too. The Indian girl Samira, being a former Miss World, is aware of her unmatchable beauty and sexy body, which surpassed the feminine attractions of those two teenage Eritrean girls Mona and Zahara. Therefore, she knew and understood she would be gang-raped by those wicked Sudanese policemen. While the rape of those two foreign girls is in progress, the Indian girl Samira is sweating and trembling like a helpless lamb who sees two tigers in her reach, and she is cornered with no avenue of escape from her looming rape. At that critical time, she recollected her brutal rape by two Muslim policemen in Mumbai town in Mumbai, and she expected today she is going to go through the same painful gang rape experience. Chapter 36. The Risky Escape. In the meantime, the American husband Samir spent most of his night desperately trying to figure out how to escape from their predicament and extricate his Indian wife Samira from the dangerous situation they are now embroiled in. There are with him other two local detainees in the dark hut. Both are Sudanese, but none of them is in any position to talk. One is dead drunk. There is a common Sudanese local liquor known as Iraqi, made clandestinely by Sudanese women inside their huts and sold to the locals. It is stronger than the Indian Daro and the American moonshine, also called white lightning or Mountain Dew. Anyone ingesting it will be in a deep stupor. Indeed, you can skin his flesh or behead him, without any pain response resulting. The locals badly battered the other detainee before his damaged body was carried by the cops and dumped in the lockup. He too is motionless. A deadly fight had resulted in both his legs, 2 hands, 10 teeth broken, and ghastly lacerations to boot. He also has a fractured skull. His eyes are swollen shut. He cannot open his mouth too. His open wounds are still bleeding, and he is dying. Samir wondered how the local policeman could be so heartless as to detain such a seriously wounded person without access to emergency medical treatment. Being an American foreigner, Samir does not comprehend the extent of the disgusting and ugly racism that had been introduced to Sudan since Islam permeated it. Islam, by virtue of its class distinctions, had created a new breed of species of human beings known as black Arabs. If a black man claims that he is a white man or vice versa, you will think that that person is either mentally retarded or a crazy idiot. The Muslim Arabs' invasion of Sudan resulted in the country being renamed Arid al-Sud and came to be known in the Arabic language as Al-Sudan, which means the land of people of black faces and dark skin. A new breed of people came into existence and claimed Arabic descent. They are black. From head to toe, they are Africans. Even so, calling anyone an African will result in a death threat for the insult. You would be likening him to the African Zongi, or black Negro. The phrase black Arab is an oxymoron statement. Those two words, Arab and black, are not supposed to coexist in the same sentence. The Arab is reddish and Semite. Jews and Arabs are the descendants of Shem, the son of Noah, and that is why they are called Semitic people. The African man is black and Hamitic, a descendant of Ham, the son of Noah. White people and Indians of the Hindustan are Japhetic people, the descendants of Japheth, the third son of Noah. Having said this, those black Sudanese Arabs consider themselves to be masters and the original Sudanese Africans their slaves. As we mentioned, this evil form of racism started when Sudan ceased being a Christian country called the Kingdom of Kush. The conquering Arab Muslims, as is their custom, treated the captured women of their defeated African Christians as their war female sabaya, female war captives. As captive women, they were subject to being raped without the need of their rapists to marry them, as the Quran allows that in Surah Al-Nisa 4, verse 3. Children born out of those forced unions were called the Aulad al-Jawari, or children of black female slaves. Those children of mixed races, Semitic and Hamitic, their descendants later claimed to be pure Arabs and followed in the footsteps of the very people who sired them. Despite the vernacular black complexion and the African hair, they still claim to be Arabs, and some of them go further than that and say they are direct descendants of the Quraysh tribe in which the Prophet Muhammad was born. Understandably, such divisions resulted in a long-lasting civil war in the south of Sudan, which recently led to the division of the nation of Sudan into two countries, the south of Sudan and the north of Sudan. It also led to the uprising of the African Sudanese tribes of Darfur province. To stamp out the Fur rebels, the Islamic government of Khartoum resorted to hideously efficient crimes, condemned by the International Criminal Court, and led to the eventual indictment of the President of Sudan, Omar al-Bashir, and his Muslim terrorists with war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide. When the British left Sudan in 1956, they handed over the leadership of the country to the black Arabs. Until today, all the major positions in government are theirs. The African Sudanese are not allowed to work even as police officers or military soldiers. They work as cleaners, street sweepers, sewer workers, garbage men, menservants, maidservants, local liquor makers, burglars, highway robbers, prostitutes, witches, and the like. I know that the last five are not jobs, but circumstances force some of them either to steal or face the prospect of starvation. Having said this, let us go back to the American detainee Samir Ahmed and his two black Sudanese African suspects. There appeared to be no avenue of escape, the hut having only a small, guarded door. The door is securely locked with a big padlock and guarded by two armed guards. Samir reasonably surmised that his Indian wife Samira was shut up in yet another similar hut with the two Eritrean girls. He is worried that those Sudanese cops may take advantage of the situation and abuse their authority by raping the three foreign female detainees. He hoped that such an evil fate would not befall the three girls, offering a prayer for their collective safety. He remembered that all the policemen he saw had long beards, indicating their piousness, which gave him a glimmer of hope. He is thinking that religious Muslim policemen fear Allah, and therefore will not think of raping defenseless young women like his beautiful Indian wife, and the two Eritrean teenage girls. Samir has no tools to pry a hole through the wood and grass wall of the hut. His hands are useless against the sturdy construction of the grass adobe. At dawn, the rain began to fall, accompanied by heavy thunder and lightning. The thought that the hut may be hit by a thunderbolt and burned down crossed Samir's mind. He heard sad stories of Sudanese who died during thunderstorms, got hit by the bolts of lightning, and were electrocuted. He prayed to his Lord to save him and his wife from death by thunderbolts. Deep in musing, an idea appeared to him, and he decided to give it a try. He decided to search the two half-dead suspects for any tools that may be on their torn clothes when they were arrested and dragged in. Using the occasional flash of lightning for illumination, he began with the dead drunk local detainee. He found on him a snuff box, 2 amulets, and a few Sudanese coins. He put them back and went to the one who looked mortally wounded. He found on him a long dagger fastened with a leather strip around his left shoulder and his underarm. Samir carefully unarmed the man and took his local weapon. He searched the rest of his body for more useful tools, but found instead a few amulets fastened around his waist. It looks like while protective talismans are immensely popular in Sudan, they scarcely work. Samir guessed rightly because the people of Sudan are very superstitious, and 90% of the men believe in the protective power of amulets and talismans. They believe that a person wearing the right amulet can effectively be protected against all weapons attacks including firearms. They also believe that neither snake nor scorpion can emit poison to kill an amulet-guarded man. Women are not allowed to wear amulets because they are considered religiously unclean females due to their menses. This is because each amulet contains verses of the Holy Quran. Ironically, the same religious faqih who makes those amulets and sells them can be hired to harm and kill with black magic. Samir used the dagger as a saw and began to cut through the wood, making a hole in the wall. In an hour, the hole looked large enough to enable him to escape. Trying the hole, he realized that it was still too small, but it was almost the morning light that appeared, so he forced his way through. His skin has abrasion from the wood and his clothes are torn and soiled with blood. As soon as he stepped out, his feet sank in the mud that had been created by the continuous pouring rain. Samir began to walk carefully in the mud, mindful to make as little noise as possible. It is still dark, and the heavy rain is coming down like a pipe being broken in the sky. He began to walk and find his way with the occasional flash of lightning. His next task is more difficult. There are 3 huts in front of him. He has no clue which hut is used as lockup for the 3 foreign female detainees. If he starts to make a hole in each one of the 3 huts, then the morning will come before he can finish with the second one. He cannot afford to breach the wrong hut. The 3 huts are similar, with one exception. One of the huts has a rear window facing the back of the prison compound. Samir ruled out that hut because the dungeon from where he just escaped from was windowless. It must be a storeroom or an office. Now Samir is left with 2 huts. Both huts have no windows. After carefully surveying them over 3 consecutive bright lights of lightning strikes, he is stumped. He could find no clues to deduce a solution. His Western mentality is not helping him, so he decides to use his 8-month tenure with those 7th century people to figure out which hut is housing his wife. The daybreak is less than an hour away before he can lose the element of surprise and his arrest. Experience told him that women in Sudan are always isolated, as if they are carrying contagious diseases or are dangerous wild beasts. In that sense, it is obvious that the hut furthest away from the others must be the obvious choice. Samir knew that, if he guessed incorrectly, the consequences were going to be dire for him. His two choices are to either run away to save himself and leave his beloved Indian wife to her inevitable death in the hands of those ruthless people, or go back to his hut and face the consequences of trying to escape. With those frightening thoughts in mind, the American husband offered a quick prayer before he began to create a hole in that isolated hut. He worked extremely hard and quickly until he made a small hole, which enabled him to view the creatures inside the hut. Through the lighting, he spotted the 3 females lying asleep on the ground. He resumed his task until in a brief time, he made a bigger hole than the one he created for his escape. He does not want his beloved wife to experience the same pain and have the same cuts and bruises on her delicate body as he went through during his escape. Then he crept inside the hut like a thief in the night. Through the lighting, Samir saw 3 bodies lying on the ground, and each one was covered from head to foot with a black blanket. It seems that the so-called righteous cops of Allah rendered more care to the female detainees than the male suspects. He faced with yet another dilemma. Touching any of the girls randomly would be unwise, which may result in the girl screaming in fright. If such a thing happens, he knows the 2 armed guards will get alert and rush and shoot him. So he must know exactly which sleeping girl from the 3 female foreign detainees belonged to his beloved Indian wife Samira. The 3 covered female bodies became like the 3 identical huts. Once again, he needs to use his mental intuition and make the correct choice. This problem cannot be solved through gender discrimination or any outside assistance. He just used his intelligence to identify the body of his beloved wife. He knows that the 2 Eritrean refugee teenage girls, Mona and Zahara, are shorter than Samira and have lesser flesh. Therefore, this time it took him less than a minute to recognize his beloved Indian wife after applying that simple logic. Samir bent over the body of his beloved wife, put his both hands on her mouth, and closed it. When Samira woke up, she made some suppressed sounds and struggled to free her mouth. She thought she is going to be gang-raped by those 2 unrighteous policemen of Allah, who raped the 2 Eritrean girls in front of her eyes. Until now she could not understand why those 2 rapists spared her after they finished having sex with the Eritrean refugee girls Mona and Zahara. They repeatedly raped their 2 easy victims. They even sodomized the 2 girls. After spending over an hour of sex orgy with those Eritrean refugee girls, they then left without touching the beautiful Indian female detainee. Their strange behaviors are a great mystery to Samira. She could not understand them. She concluded that those 2 wicked men may come on the following night and rape her too. When Samir woke her, Samira struggled to free herself. Her violent response dislodged the blanket from her eyes, and she quickly recognized her American lover. In whispers, Samir instructed her to be quiet and follow him without making any sound. Without saying a word, Samira followed her husband to the hole. Then he assisted her to emerge from the hut, and immediately he came behind her. After freeing his beloved wife, Samir wants to return to the hut, wake up the 2 Eritrean girls, and assist them in escaping. Samira caught hold of his hand and stopped him from going back. She told him that the 2 Eritrean girls had already paid the price of their freedom, and they would be on their way to their refugee camp sooner or later. Samir could not understand what his beloved wife meant and asked her to explain herself better. Samira said to Samir, "It is a long story, but this is not the right time to tell it." She promised to make everything clear after their escape, and both of them have reached a far safe distance.